To learn more about James Martell, the School of Internet Marketing, and how you or someone on your staff can quickly and easily learn how to develop a successful online presence for your personal or corporate brand, visit theschoolofinternetmarketing.com. That's www.theschoolofinternetmarketing.com.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's James Martell here. Welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk. Tonight we've got a very special guest from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, named Brent-Truitt. He's a super affiliate, and we have a real rare opportunity to have a chat with Brent because, quite frankly, typically super affiliates, unless they have something to sell, are pretty quiet about their secrets, their tips, their techniques, and what they're up to in their business. So it's really good to have Brent joining us this evening. I've also got Phil-Watkins on the line tonight, who I've been working with now for, if we can believe it, almost just over a year now. And Phil handles, for those listeners who may be curious, he handles not only a lot of the technical end of the business with the video and audio and making sure all that's happening in the way it should, but he also handles business development for my company, Net Guides Publishing. So he's got a long history in business. He's actually has a very successful company up here in Canada, and he'll probably maybe share a little bit about that when we get on, but he's got a very long and solid history in business, and he's been working around the Internet now for a couple of years, and that's actually how we met, which was through a mutual acquaintance that we're both involved in the Internet, and over the last year or so, we've began partnering on a few very special projects, and we've had a real good time, and we've traveled to a few conferences together, and it's really, really good to have Phil with us as well. Now, the reason I asked Phil to join us, and this actually came through a conversation he and I had not too long ago where we were talking about something, I don't really quite recall what it was, but I just hung up the telephone one day, and I said, well, I just got off the phone with Brent-Truitt from Calgary, Alberta. And he goes, Brent-Truitt. He says, I know that name. And turns out, to make a long story short, and we'll get into the long story in a minute, that Phil actually knows Brent. So a little bit of, it's definitely a small world. So the way I got to know Brent, and we'll get him on in just a minute to let him kind of share his story and how he got started, is back in probably the spring of 2004, I was doing an affiliate buzz, and I'd happened to mention that I'd finally gotten to the point where I could buy my Cobra. And that's, for those who have been listening for a long time, it's been, a dream car of mine for years, and thanks to affiliate marketing and finally getting into a position where I could call my bookkeeper and say, can I actually finally afford to buy this thing? And he said, I'll get back to you in a couple of days on that, and he did. And he says, yep, you can do it. So we ended up flying to Calgary after I'd found somebody to build the car, and Brent was listening to that buzz where I was talking about that, and he ended up firing me off an email, which by now was the summer of 2004, and said, hey, if you're coming to Calgary, my name's Brent, my wife's Betty, why don't we meet for dinner, and it'd be good to meet with you guys. So when we finally booked the airline flight, I headed off to Calgary with Justin, who's my son, because we kind of planned on flying back and forth a little bit to check on the car. It was kind of a father-son thing. And we ended up landing in Calgary, getting booked into the hotel, and an hour or two later we headed down to a little restaurant called Mother Tucker's, where we had a chance to have dinner with Brent and Betty. So that's kind of where we first got to meet them. And he bought the handbook, and I'll let him actually flesh out the story a little bit. I just want to kind of lay the groundwork to how this all came about. A few months later in the fall, it was time to go back to Calgary to check up on the car, see how it was progressing. And for anybody that's ever dreamed of maybe building their own dream car, where you actually get to build the car from the frame up and, pick everything from the brakes to what kind of steering rack you want and what kind of leather seats and all that kind of stuff, it was an exciting time for us. So finally the car got to the point where paint was on the body and the body was getting ready to be dropped onto the frame, and I wanted to have a look at it before it was done, before they actually buttoned it up. So in the fall, Justin and I hopped on an airplane again, headed back to Calgary, where we again sat with Brent and Betty for dinner, again at Mother Tucker's. and we enjoyed a nice dinner and a great time, and we've kept in touch over the years, or kept in touch a little while after that, and then back in January now, back in I think it was January of 2005, the car was finally finished. It's winter time now in Calgary, and that's a pretty cold place. That's probably where Canada gets one of the places Canada gets a reputation for being cold, unlike Vancouver, which is typically nice. We headed back, Arlene and I this time, to take delivery of the car. And this time, Brent and Betty invited us to stay the evening and stay overnight at their place, and we took them up on the offer, and we've kept in touch with them ever since. They're wonderful people. They've built a tremendous affiliate marketing business over the years. They've done really well. They've had their ups, their downs, and like all of us have over the years, with any business, you've got these little cycles that you go through, but they've persevered, and they have a beautiful little business now. So we're going to get Brent on the line in just a second. So during this time that I talked about Phil earlier, we worked together in the last year, Brent came up. And it turns out that he knew Brent. I, of course, knew Brent. And we got to chatting about what a small world it was and how this could, how this could all tie together. Because Phil has known Brent for many, many years. So if I could, Phil, let me bring you into the conversation first. And why don't we have a chat? Why don't you maybe give us a little bit of your background, and then let's talk about the early days where you got to meet with Brent.
Hi, James. You're right. It's really a small world. It was kind of funny. It was not long ago that you mentioned Brent-Truitt, and I'm like, Brent-Truitt. What are the odds? Calgary wouldn't be a musician, would he? And you go, as a matter of fact, he is a musician. I'm going, well, what are the odds? It's got to be the same Brent-Truitt. I can't believe it after all these years. What a coincidence. And of course, I explained to you, James, that I knew Brent back many years ago. Before this last incarnation of business, the last 10 years, I've been in the direct marketing business, basically offline affiliate business for telecoms, credit cards, home security. But before that, I was a musician, and early on, for a very small time, and quickly figured out that I was a better agent than I was a musician. So I opened up an entertainment agency. And so I've been basically working out of my home now, I guess, since I was about 20 years old, and the first almost 15 years was as an entertainment agent. And so I got to do a lot of different things. I booked some recording acts, Jerry Doucette. I did some shows. I had a little bit of brush with some pretty serious bands. I did some work with a band called Three Dog Night. I don't know if you remember those guys. Oh, very good. And a band called Rain, and Randy Elvis Frisky, worked with him. He spent the longest running Elvis act at the Cave, 3 weeks running, sold it out. Yeah. Cave in Vancouver. We had him in Vegas. He did a huge run down there. But a lot of my work was just local clubs and local clubs and bars and that type of thing, and cabarets. And so, at any rate,
during this time that you probably met or was introduced to Brent, or?
Yeah, that's how it came about. I was, you're in the business, and I had a company, and you get to meet people over the time, and bands come up to you, and you're looking for bands, or they get your phone number and they call you and look for work, and I actually don't quite remember how it happened. Whether I think Brent called me, or I got his tape or something in the mail. You back those days, that's a long time ago now, and you get all these calls. But it was, what I find so interesting is when I heard from you how successful Brent has been in the industry as an affiliate. It's something rang true to me. I just, we'll go figure. That just makes sense to me. Out of all the musicians and bands that I worked with, out of 15 years, there was only a handful that ever really took to heart what some suggestions they might get from people that knew, or some good solid advice. And Brett was one of the few guys that actually went out and actually took things seriously and came back and did some good work. And I was a bit of a renegade back in those days. I mean, I basically told it like it was. I really, I was successful at what I was doing, and frankly, I spoke it like it was, and if people didn't like to hear, well, that's, so what? And so every once in a while I'd get a surprise, and Brent was one of those refreshing surprises, I got to tell you. He had sent me some music and a tape, and he was pretty good. And so he wanted to have a career in the business. And so I gave him my usual chit chat. I said, well, what do you want to do with your career? Do you want to just play the bars? You think you're going to release records? What are you going to do? And he said, well, I really want to go for it. I don't want to just play bars. I really, really want to do this. I said, well, then forget playing the bars.
If you're going to, not where the money's at.
That's where the bread and butter's at. Okay. That's where you can make a living today. You don't go play in a pub tonight, and they'll pay you $100 for your time, to go entertain people while they're drinking beer. Okay. But if you want to have a career, you have to build a product. You have to learn your craft. And when you're a commercial artist, you're so busy chasing that beer money, you don't really develop the art of learning how to really build a career and write original music. So I said, you're either going to develop your craft, learn how to write, and I said, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to work hard at this. And you're going to probably have to get a day job, do whatever you have to do, but you're not going to be successful. If you go in that bar scene, 10 years from now, you'll be too old to do it. You won't have made any money. You'll spend all your time, worrying about where you're working next week instead of writing that song or that album and writing those lyrics and putting that music together that's actually going to do something for you.
Yeah, because I would imagine most guys that are playing in the bars are playing other people's music.
Totally, yeah. And actually, not so much now, but back in the day that we were talking about with Brent, which I won't talk about.
You want to date yourself? I think you already did with 3 Dog Night.
Oh, yeah, you got me there. So, there was actually a couple of bands that actually, when we were talking earlier tonight, it occurred, I was thinking to myself, was Brent the only one and there's one other band that was similar. And this band was called Idolize. I don't know if anybody knows who they are, but they were I had them booked in a little pub downtown, and they were the same kind of story. They wanted to get ahead, and they were young, and I said, look, if you guys want to get somewhere, just forget the bars. Well, they disappeared. And all of a sudden, 3 years later, I hear this, this song on the radio, and the guy says it's Idolize, and it's Tad Campbell, the guy who was the leader of the band, was in the band, and anyways, long story short, it was the same guy. Followed up with him, and yeah, they quit doing it. And they actually went out and did some work, and very similar to Brent. Brent did the exact same thing. Brent he quit doing the gigs. And over a long period of time, we went back and forth, and he actually started sending me some really good material and really good music. He was writing his demos, his lyrics, and like I say, it was when you told me about the success he's had in Calgary in his affiliate business, I couldn't help but think there has to be something similar. And then you mentioned he became an airline mechanic, and I thought, well, good gravy, musician, artist, records an album, airline mechanic,
successful internet entrepreneur.
Like, what is the common thread through this? And I thought to myself, obviously, if a guy, he obviously has to listen to something or have some way of doing it, and so since we've had this chance, I've got to chat with him again, and I think there's definitely a common thread, and I think it's worthwhile. I think it's good stuff for people to hear how an individual can do that kind of stuff and move ahead in life and succeed at challenges, and of course, being as an affiliate marketer. I think that's close to everyone on the call's heart right now, is being an affiliate marketer. But I think it's that proof of the common thread through all those things that give us all a little sense of, hey, there is a certain little thing in life that if you can be like or act like or principle you can follow, you can achieve just about anything you put your mind to. And I think Brent's a classic example of that. And I think it's just, we were talking earlier this afternoon, I got to admit, it gets my juices going. I think, good golly, what else have I not done in my life I want to go after, it's motivating. So I thought think it's a great opportunity to share that with people.
That's very cool. Well, let's bring Brent into the conversation here. So, welcome to the call there, Mr. Truitt.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you loud and clear. So
oh, that's good. Great.
It's good to hear the other part of your story. Phil's kind of shared little pieces of it over the last couple of months, but I hadn't really heard it fleshed out. So if you guys maybe want to just fill that in a little bit.
Oh, where does it begin, Brent?
Well, it's funny because it's very flattering to hear Phil and you talk like that, James, especially from you guys. But I have to say this, one thing I love about talking to Phil and I love about talking to James is when I'm talking to you guys or people, similar-minded, it strikes me that I'm not the only one that isn't afraid to dream. There's so many people that, tell you along the way when you're approaching a dream or you're talking to somebody about maybe I'll make a website, geez, I can make some money at home. Or, you're a musician or whatever you want to do in your life. And it's hard sometimes because you don't have a support. And people like Phil and James, you guys really are supportive of others' dreams. And your attitude is go for it and get out there and do it. And sort of put the blinders on and then focus in on what you want your dream is and go from there. And the main thing is finding people, mentoring. I approached Phil actually in a bar with some other band. I didn't have a lot of food in me, and I was a starving musician. And Phil would actually took a little attention and said, "This guy's actually pretty good." And Phil would scrape me up off the pavement and drive me in his car. I didn't have a car, and he would buy me a meal. And that little bit of inspiration was all it took for me to grab and hold on to. And that's probably the main thing. Phil's trying to talk about a common thread with all these things. It's really just grabbing a bit of inspiration and letting other people help you, letting other people guide you, and then just focus and go from there.
Well, Brent, why don't you go through some of the thoughts? Like I remember when we started, you were looking to play in a band, and then we talked about your career and your goals. Mm-hmm. I follow through how some of the thoughts you went through when you said, "Well, okay, I'm not going to play in the bar. I'm going to get a job." And
yeah.
I don't know if you're going to repeat this, but I got to tell you what you told me this afternoon because we were talking before this. It's right like out of a scene out of Officer and a Gentleman, and I'm going to steal some of your thunder here, but I can't help it. It's just too good. Here you are, you decide to get a job, but you decided to become an airline mechanic to fund your musical dreams. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
And then you end up with two Vietnam veterans. You're apprenticing, and here you're telling me something. There's a guy, an inch nose to nose, yelling at you, "You're never going to be a mechanic. You don't have what it takes to be a mechanic. You're no good to be a mechanic." That kind of just going to quit, like out of Officer and a Gentleman, and somehow you prevailed.
Well, that's exactly it, But before I decided that, in the music business, after I talked to you, it was a big learning experience. I talked to somebody who has some experience, someone who had, booked people like Kim Mitchell or some of these bigger name acts. I was just, blown away, of course, and I was, I'm not worthy was kind of the feeling I had when I met you in those days. And I think that the ability to be humble, the ability to say, well, I don't know everything. As a matter of fact, you know what? I know zero right now, but I will learn. And when you take it to heart, and then once you fall in love with the idea of going for it and having that dream, then you go and find the right people. And, those Vietnam vets you mentioned, that I looked around to find the right guys where I could get a good apprenticeship. And I wanted experienced guys with common sense knowledge of the field. And I grabbed these guys, and they were really tough. They were really tough, and they were just the same way as you were with the music business. You said, look, it's not easy. It's really tough, and you need to maybe listen to me because I got some advice for you. And that's really how it went. And absolutely, the guy was nose to nose telling me, you're never going to make it. You don't have enough brains. You don't have enough natural talent. You don't have an aptitude. You don't have a chance. And that kind of stole me. that kind of stole me. That said to me, that was my challenge. You know, when I hear someone say, I can't do it, my first reaction is, I want to do it, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to prove you wrong. And the same kind of thing with I've always approached it that way anyway. You know?
Then you did go on to become an airline mechanic.
Yeah, I got my endorsements, and that was a long, hard. I failed all the exams. I was telling Phil I failed the exams twice in a row. I was studying from the wrong books because at the time I couldn't afford to get the right books.
Yeah.
And believe me,
what kind of jets were these?
Well, I'm blanketed now from all the Boeing and the Airbuses, and I've got all pretty well blanket license, everything from a jet airliner down to a balloon. But it was a long process, and so, anyways, I get told, Phil, I approached that business the same way I've always approached everything. You know, I'm not the brightest, I'm not the sharpest stick in the shed. I will admit that, but that's always served me well because people will help you if you say, you know, I really don't understand this. I'm having trouble with this, but, you know, I'm willing to listen. And that's the big one, you know, I'm willing to listen to someone who knows what they're talking about. And away it went. You know, then before I knew it, I had this airline job, then I had good money, and then I had the ability to fly anywhere I wanted to, so I could pack up my acoustic guitar and play a gig in Toronto, and the next weekend I was in Vancouver playing, and picked up an agent, I got to meet some cool people, and you know what, I got a few real cool names I like to drop too, but it's kind of off topic, but I met a lot of big people in the business and had some amazing times and much music and this kind of thing and some albums out, lots of radio play. So it was just, all these dreams came true. And really where it came from, I lived for 4 years way below the poverty line in Vancouver, cooking pizzas and washing dishes and taking crap from pretty well anybody because I didn't even look pretty. You know, I get a sneer from the girl giving me the donut at the donut shop. I was so ugly. You know, it wasn't a pretty sight, guys. You know, so and basically all my peers were the people who lived in the buildings that I lived in, and the rent was extremely cheap, and I was living right in the Bowery kind of a feeling, really. But I said, you know, I'm gonna, whatever I do, I'm going to make it someday. But you know, me sitting here now, Phil reminded me today, really, I guess, what an amazing journey it has been, because my wife and I now, on the internet, we're making, like last month we made $14,000. The month before that we made $12,000. This month is going to be about $11,000, $12,000 U.S., you know, and we're traveling. I'm traveling so much that I'm pinching myself and feel like a spoiled brat. And I realized by talking to my accountant the other day that I need to travel more.
Nice problem to have, huh?
Yeah, because I might as well write it off. I might as well spend another 2 weeks in Palm Springs or the Bahamas or Hawaii than give it to the tax man.
Absolutely.
And if I can digress a little bit, for all you people out there building websites, it's a great way to write stuff off. Because as you know, there's a big stink about using other people's images, you know, on your websites. So what I did is I built a bunch of sites on my favorite topics, like one on golf. And you turn around and you can write off all your golf trips, because you can honestly say to the tax man, you can say, look, I have to get pictures for my website. And just like a journalist who goes off to a country, he writes off all his airline, his hotel, and everything, so he can take a few pictures and write his articles. And basically, you make websites, you're basically creating content. You're like a journalist. So it's a legitimate write-off. So, anyways, back to the subject.
One thing that I see as a common thread, besides your ability to sort of follow, one thing you were talking about this afternoon, I'd love you to share, is how you became an airline mechanic so you could follow your musical dreams, because you figured, okay, I'm not going to be able to be in the bar, so no, I'm going to do this. And then at some point, your airline business, I guess you got with Canadian Airlines, and maybe you could just go through how that, and how you first started thinking that you were going to build websites because you were going to further your career again, it was, you had this dream of, okay, I want money, like that song, money for nothing and your wife for free sort of thing.
Yeah, that's not what the song says.
Well, listen, this is a kid's show now, come on.
Right.
So, follow through that trend a little bit, and then I guess then you can go on into the how you really got your feet into the affiliate business with James. But
sure.
I think that progression there is just really kind of interesting how you did that.
Well, yeah, what happened was I was lucky enough to have a good job still, and I had some time on my spare time off my job at the airline to do my music, and of course that funded me, so I was able to release albums and buy good equipment and get into some good studios down in Los Angeles and this kind of thing, and that was great. And I was I was pretty pumped, and I was living the dream. But then I realized, what? I want to have all of my time free to do my music unfettered, completely unfettered, as Kramer would say on Seinfeld. And I just decided, well, you know what? If I ever get a chance to get that free, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take the risk. I'm gonna leave all this behind in this job. Well, what happened was Air Canada. I ended up with Air Canada, and they laid us off. And it was the third base closure I had been through. And I thought, you know what? I've had enough of this. My dream is to have a different job where I work out of the house, and I want to be able to have unlimited free time, basically, to do my music. So I was in Calgary. I had my studio set up and everything. I was building it up. And lo and behold, they closed the base, and all of my partners, all my coworkers, these are awesome guys, all of us with our heads hung low, trying to figure out how we're going to feed our families. What base are we going to go to? Are we going to go to Winnipeg? Are we going to go to Vancouver? Are we going to try to get a job in American Airlines?
And that's quite a job, picking up the whole household and moving to another city.
Yeah, and guess what? Most of these companies, especially in the airlines after 9/11, could not afford to give moving benefits to anybody. And we understood that. You know what? We didn't even fight that with unions or anything. We just we bid it. And anyway, so here's the story, the transition. I'm sitting at the hangar with all of the guys. We're holding our pink slips in our hands, staring at each other in shock. In our coveralls, we'd worked so hard so many years to get to this place with a great job. And we're sitting in the computer room where we do all our research to find information on the airplanes before we fix them. And we have internet access on all the computers. There's about 30 of these computers in there. And the guys were all sitting there with their feet up on the table. Some guys are moaning, some guys are real quiet in shock. And the question started to go out: What are we going to do, guys? What are we going to do? And some of them said, well, I hate this job anyway, but I'm going to have to go somewhere else. And they're making these decisions, and they're not good decisions. And then finally one of the guys said, Brent, what are you going to do? You're the mouthpiece here. What are you going to do? I said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I think I'm quitting. I'm going to quit. And they said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I said, I like computers. I like poking around with my email and sending my family silly little jokes on my email. I think I was just turned on to the fascination of the internet at the time. And I turned around and I said, well, you know what? I'm going to work at home, and so I'm going to type it in. So I typed in one of the computers in front of all the guys. We're standing around the coveralls. All I typed in, I want to work at home on my computer.
I got that word.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I Googled it. I want to work at home on my computer. So, sure enough, what do I see? On the top page, work at home net guides. And before I know it, I'm surfing through all these different offers and different ebooks and what have you. Well, I saw James in there, and, I'll get my honest, just the basic smile he had. It seemed sincere to me. And also, he was Canadian. I could relate with that.
Yes.
And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to try this one. And so being nervous, I didn't have any money. I was going to go on Pogie for a few months, $1,500 Canadian if I was lucky, a month. And so I was going in the hole. Savings were going to be going down. I knew I was in trouble. So anyways, I knuckled up, and I bought James's ebook, Work at Home, and a Work at Home guide kind of a thing. $167 it was at the time. I don't know what it is now, but
$197.
What is it? 190? Yeah, it should be about $3,000.
Okay.
So, anyways, I would, you know, I look back on it now. I hate to. I'm not just, I'm not just pushing this thing to your students or anything. But I said that to Betty many times. You know, that book was worth more to me than $3,000. I mean, these companies that go and they invest all this money to get a startup on any kind of a business, and I see the thousands of dollars and that they spend on overhead and the risk they take, and I risked $167. But I took that ebook and I just started working at it. And you know, want to talk about laughter? You know, people, my family, my parents, my coworkers, everybody except my wife were laughing at me. Like, oh my God, Brent, that's a scam. You know, you'd be better off selling Amway. And I said, well, don't laugh. Amway's nothing wrong with Amway. I know some people will make good money at that. But anyway, I started with that, and I just started to build these sites. And before you know it, I had actually misspelled some of my words and my content, which enabled me to get a little bit of traffic. And I started to make a few pennies just because I can spell very well. And lo and behold, but you know what? It proved to me it worked. You know, as soon as I could see that I made 20 cents, I knew that all I had to do was move the decimal point.
That's right.
And that's all I've been doing ever since, is moving the decimal point further to the right and further to the right. And the sick part about it is, now, back being on a basic income with a job, you know, my God, you know, if you got an extra $50 in your pocket from selling a lawnmower, it was a big deal. It made a difference. $50 makes a difference. It pays half of a phone bill, you know.
You bet.
And sure enough, now with the internet, Betty says, we need to get a car because our cars were no good here a couple of years ago. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to blast off a bunch of sites here in the next couple of weeks. I'll guarantee you in 2 weeks I'll have built enough new websites to cover that car. So there you go, $600 payment per month. And I did it in 2 weeks. I had made enough traffic to pay for that new car that we drive now.
Exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. And so it's basically, it's an endless pit. So it's an endless pool of cash, right?
Oh yeah. To me, the internet's it's basically a license to print money. Once you know what you're doing, isn't it a riot? Yeah,
it's a riot. And what stings me is I'm I guess under the terms of what they call super affiliates. I think maybe I am in that category by now.
I'd put you there
with our income, but you know what? Barely, because I have cohorts, and I know James. You know, lots that people are making $100,000 a month doing this, or more.
Oh yeah, lots.
Lots of them, and some of them are doing it with one site.
It's one of the things that I'm recommending most to students, especially these days, getting started, is to stay focused in on one site.
Yeah, it's becoming critical. That's the way it was before, when you could just throw up a whole bunch of sites. It was free for all. But I'm recommending that to people now too.
Let me go back in your business now. Let me go back to when you began, because I kind of remember some of those conversations we had when we were in Calgary.
Yeah.
And I know you began and you got started.
Yeah.
I know we got a lot of listeners here. Some of them have been around for a long time and are doing well, but we also have people on the line that are brand new, that have never built a site before, or they're just maybe building that very first one.
Yeah.
They're a little bit nervous, and they're wondering, their friends and family are looking at them a little sideways too. By the way, what do they say now?
Oh, it's still shocking. I get a lot of phone calls. You know what? I've stopped telling them about the last trip to Palm Springs, the last trip to Hawaii, the last trip to I just stopped, because after a while you're just a prick, and they don't want to listen to you. And I never meant to gloat. I never gloated. I was never bragging. I was just saying, they asked me what I was doing last week, and I told them what I was doing last week.
I know the feeling on this.
And my her attitude is still, it's got to crash eventually. She was saying that for the first year. Now it's 3 years or more later, and I'm making more than we ever did. And so they're a little shocked, but they're starting to get used to it now.
Just if I can, just how much does an Air Canada certified licensed mechanic make?
Good question.
Very good question.
Very good question.
To the sound of that job, it's a very impressive job. So I assume a fair bit.
You know what? It's a scary job, because when we sign the logbooks, we go down to the ramp and there's an engine that's not starting, or we have flight guidance equipment that's not working. We go and we make a fix, they call it. We sign off the logbooks, and then when we sign those logbooks, it's a legal document. And now, believe it or not, everyone on that aircraft is now I'm liable. So if whatever I fixed didn't work and caused an accident, I'm held personally responsible. So the pressure on the guys now is more intense than it's ever been. It used to be that if a mechanic made a mistake, the airline would back him up in court, right?
Yeah.
That's gone now. That's gone. We are solely responsible now. We can be put to the poorhouse and in jail, quite frankly, if it's bad enough, right? So we make $33 Canadian an hour.
Wow.
And you know what I take home on that? My take home was $3,200, I think. $3,200 Canadian I took home a month, and that's it. That was the top of my game.
That's roughly $750 a week.
Yeah, I could never go higher, and that's Canadian. And now, if I'm not making that much, I won't even go into it. It's stupid. You can't compare it. And of course, if it's your business, you get to use write-offs now. And you know what? When you start using write-offs, everything changes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
there's actually a great book on that up here. It's called The Wealthy Barber. It's probably in the States as well, maybe other countries.
Yeah, I read that one. Yeah,
that's a good one. And in that book, he makes a statement that says there's nobody, at least in Canada, that should, under no circumstances, should they be running their lives financially without having their own home-based business, period, just because of the write-offs.
Yeah.
And it amazes me all the time when I hear how many people, pay so much in income tax they don't have a home business when they could, take advantage of legitimate tax deductions and keep that money and head down to these conferences and take in these events and go to these places instead of paying the good old tax man.
Yeah, you're going to give it to the tax man anyway, so, you have a choice. Give it to the tax man or go down to Santa Barbara and, have a cup of coffee with James and bask in the warm weather and hang out with some of our fine feathered friends that are involved in this crazy internet business.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to when you got started and today, how would you compare building a website today and to make some money as compared to yesterday when you first got started? Like here it is in 2007. If you were starting fresh today, how would you feel about it compared to the day when you got started?
Great question. And I'm going to answer that. At the same time, I'm going to answer the one James was talking about for the people who are just starting out and they're working on their first site. I would do it exactly the same. As a matter of fact, the more time goes by, the more I'm going more and more back. I went off on all sorts of tangents, just experimenting on different things. But my most successful sites today are the same sites I built 3 years ago using exactly the same methods I used in a $167 ebook of James. You know why? Because if you build a site properly, you don't even have to have hundreds of pages. I got a simple little site on bridesmaid dresses that ticks along and makes $150 a month. I never touch it. It's got about 30 pages on it, but I wrote the content myself, and I wrote it using all the parameters James gives for writing content. And that little puppy kicks along, and Google loves it. And if you start playing games and start trying to be fancy and start breaking the rules, Google will dump your site, and you might be lucky to get a little MSN and Yahoo traffic, and possibly get your AdSense account shut down. So my answer is I would do it exactly the same way I did. And as a matter of fact, I am today. I'm still building sites the same simple, basic method of writing good quality content or getting someone else to write the content. But it's funny, when I met James at Mother Talkers the first time, I hadn't even finished my first sites yet.
No, you were literally just getting started.
Just literally getting started, and I had built a site on direct TV, satellite TV. And I'm not worried about sharing these because, I've got about 3 or 4 of those sites. And I had a site on golf, and I had a site on the financial services, right? Mm-hmm. Pretty typical stuff, right?
Yep.
And I was sitting there talking to James, and we're eating our roast beef, and, I was really nervous about if I could do this, and I said to James, well, James, I built these few sites, or I'm working on these sites, and I think I really screwed up because I'm in an area of the market where it's just too competitive. I don't see how it'll ever get any traffic. And I was really concerned. I thought I wasted weeks of time, on these sites. And James winked, had a little giggle, and he said, "Don't worry about it. They'll do just fine. Just keep on going," right? So I built, the content, and I built these sites up. You know what? I go into that account, and those same 3 sites are banging in the cash more today than they were then. The satellite TV site makes $600 US a month. At no pay-per-click. It's just pumping in the money, right? So, people get a satellite TV activated, you get $150. Whoopee. Right. Boy, that's a tough one to take, isn't it? and then never mind the AdSense clicks, So it just all adds up, and those simple 3 sites are still making good gravy. And you know what? I'm just going to continue to do the same thing. Once you got something figured out, just repeat it.
How long, Brent, would you say it took you to really get your head around the business?
Well, like I said, I wasn't a sharper stick in the shed, so I wasn't really trying to get my head around the business. I was just hopefully trying to build a site that just navigated. I'm talking simple stuff here, like how to make a link. Right. How to set. I studied for 2 weeks some of your sites and to try to see where would I put the link to the homepage. Some of the very basic mechanics of it. That was the toughest part. So the answer to your question is, it took me about 2 months before I had a site up that looked like anything at all.
Yeah.
And it was butt ugly.
How long did it take you to finally start making some money? Maybe your first $500 in a month.
Oh, $500 in a month? I think, honestly, I think I was picking away for 8 months maybe. I hate to say it, I wasn't that fast a learner, But I was making, $200 or $300 about 5 months into it, 4 months into it. It's all blur now, but my God, I look at that kind of money per month, and I realize how quite frankly, how easy that is now.
Yeah.
When I first started, it was like, oh, this is the mountain that I don't know if I can climb. I wasn't so sure of myself. I was just inspired, and I tell this to Phil. I'll quickly add this, what kept me going was, fear was one. I had to pay some bills, and I just refused to work for the man again. But I was sitting there and working on my site slowly, and I told Phil this afternoon. I said, that little video of James and Arlene and the kids in Hawaii and in down at Disneyland, showing your basic lifestyle. Plus, you went that little video. It was one of the very early promotional videos.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit about you showed some of the websites, and there were circles going around the keywords, and you're introducing the whole thing. I played that thing. I'll guarantee you. I worked for a few minutes, and I play it again. I worked for a few minutes. I play it again. Some days when I was insecure, I play that video 20 times. Just looking at the dream, just thinking, hey, this has got to be possible. This has got to be possible. I can just tell by listening to this fella. And after, of course, I met you. That really helped, And a lot of people don't have that advantage. They don't reach out. I know the people that are listening here have obviously reached out. They're actually talking to you. They're hearing your voice. They're networking with you and others, and so they've made the smartest move of all. They've reached out, and they're having a chance to listen to people like yourself and myself, these few years later.
I think that's a really good point. So much of it is belief in actually getting this done.
Yeah.
Where you actually, because if you don't believe it's ever going to work, you're probably not going to do the work, and then guess what? It's not going to work. So I was in a very similar position when I got started, although I had a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah.
Because I already own my own company.
Yeah.
A lot of people own their own company, but I had kind of a unique company, and I was used to getting checks in the mail.
Yeah.
I had a little telecom company, and every month I'd get a whole mailbox full of mail. So when I got onto the Internet, I just kind of already knew that I could get checks in the mailbox, and I just started going at it. And next thing you know, I had checks in the mailbox. Just this time they were much bigger.
Yeah, you had residual income, and when you tasted residual income, oh my God, I mean, it's the crack cocaine of the world. I mean, once you've tasted that,
well, how many times? Let me ask you this question: how many times? You probably do it all the time, but how many times you get up in the morning, go and check your stats, and before you even had your breakfast, you made more money than you would have made if you worked all day at a job?
I've had that. Well, that's every day.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's every day that happens. I mean, here's the stupid part. Here's the sick part, and this is why I will fight tooth and nail. Like if I said to Betty many times, I said, if every single one of my sites got shut down, and some black cloud appeared on the horizon over our house, and for some reason Google AdSense said you're out of the program. Or whatever, or I couldn't get any traffic, or something crazy happened. It's an imaginary, hypothetical, ridiculous situation. But if it did, I would do everything in my power. I would sell the boat, sell the house, sell the cars. I would move into a frickin' basement suite with an internet connection, and I would rather be free on $1,000 a month than be tied to some company for $5,000 a month. And once you've tasted the freedom, you're done.
Go back.
And I have to say, you get kind of spoiled.
Especially be the worst employee on the planet now, maybe second only to me.
Yeah, I would be the worst employee on the planet, because the first thing I did if I went to work for somebody is I would teach everybody in the building how to build websites.
That's been my excuse as to why I've been self-employed since I was 20 years old, because I figured I wasn't employable. I couldn't listen to anybody. Yeah. I would never do what I was told. You know, Brent, I think you're gifted with one unique quality that seems that I have to admit I'm just getting this now. And I think I have to attribute a lot to James. I'm learning a lot from James late in life. One of the things is delegating and actually offloading things, not trying to do everything myself and be a jack of all and master of none. I'm learning that one really, really quick this last year.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. But you know what I noticed about you, and I've looked at the thread through this. When I met you in the business, you're one of the few that said, gee, okay, so I shouldn't play in the bars. Okay, I won't. That makes sense. I'll just follow what you say. You know more than me. You've been here longer. Right. I'll do what you say.
Yeah.
When you went to fix airplanes, you didn't go, stop, no, don't tell me, no, I'll figure this out on myself. I don't need any help. I can do this. No, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, no.
Which is a classic mistake I've made. No, don't help me. I'll do it. And then when you found James's book, you didn't go, I'm wondering if this is legit. Or, well, you probably must have a little bit, but you just went ahead and said, okay, this is how it's supposed to do. You just followed the instructions.
Yeah, I followed step by step. I think I actually did something I wasn't supposed to do. I printed out the ebook, the PDF ebook of James. I printed it out into a binder, which I don't think I'm allowed to do that, am I, James?
You're fine.
My wrist.
I didn't do that in there.
I didn't distribute it.
One of the steps in the manual, Brent, is to go take the handbook and have it printed.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, maybe that's why I did it. It's been so long since I did my reading. But, I printed it off. And the thing was, I just wasn't cynical. To me, that's the killer. I spent a little bit of time on the forums. The marketing forums.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not going to bash all of the forums, because you can learn some stuff, and you can see some other ways people make money, and it's interesting, right? Mm-hmm. But there's the massive amount of cynicism boggles my mind. You know what? I haven't been on a forum for maybe a year and a half. I'll never go on them again, because the cynicism is hard to take. You get these people who buy an ebook, and they go, oh, no, this can't be real. No, this can't be the ticket. And then they buy a different ebook, and they got 15 ebooks, so they haven't really applied themselves to any of them. And all they had to do was stick with one, and just focus, follow the steps. Don't assume that someone else knows more. Just stick to the run and do it. And I guess that's right, Phil. I was quite humble about it. I assumed that these people knew more than I did, and you know what? They did. That's the big thing. They did, and they still do. Every time I talk to James, it's a real treat, because I tell him what I'm up to, or And then he'll tell me about something new. Every time I talk to him, there's something new. I think earlier this afternoon, James mentioned his inbound linking stuff, right? Okay. And, hey, I'm no expert in that either. I've got some ideas. I got my own methods. But that's a hard thing to do. And if you want Google traffic, you need to be linking. And
for me, it's funny, but I've been around it now for a couple of years now. But for me, knowing you through, like when you were young as a musician, and knowing you outside this business, and then, my wife actually worked in the airline, in the aerospace industry, actually packages and sells aircraft mechanic courses for BCIT. So I have a vision into that. And so to find out that the funniest small world, you're even in that business, but to know you personally, I think what we make the mistake that we think, well, gosh, this person is good at that. Well, that's because of who they are, or that's because they were lucky, or they were in the right place at the right time, or okay, I'm learning a lot now with James that I feel that I'm grateful to be exposed to. Right. But so people would say to me, well, no wonder, look, if you worked with for the last, couple of years, good gravy, of course you get, Right. So everyone sort of makes reasons why it's the other person's successful and they're not.
Oh, Go ahead. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah.
And looking at your situation and seeing how you've come along, I know you just as Brent, and then and then here you are out of work as a mechanic, and you just, well, I'm going to do this, and you start off and you do it. To me, that's the part that I find the most. I just found it really, really motivating and encouraging, because I think you demonstrate that it's not about luck or being in the right place at the right time. You actually made your luck. You typed into Google, make money at home on my computer. My good gravy. Luck
comes to the inspired. Luck comes, and when you're that feeling inspired, that's when you really, I don't want to get too mystical, but that's when you are in the pure source of power, the power of intention, as Wayne Dyer would say it. When you're inspired and you're being creative and you're looking to the future with a positive feeling, you are actually right in the source of this whole universe. And I know you understand that. And the thing about James was, yes, I did meet James. I did go forward, and he was so kind to let me meet me for dinner. And we had those couple meetings. But, those meetings, we didn't sit there and just talk to websites. And James didn't come over to my house and slip me a magic key that was going to all of a sudden make me, succeed. There was nothing like that. It was the same thing that was in the book. It was just, work hard, keep at it, and you're doing pretty good. That side looks okay. Write some more good content. You're doing fine.
Get some more bell links.
Yeah, no, James. You live in Vancouver. I live in Calgary. Yeah, there was no golden handshake of like I say, it wasn't like going to see the Wizard of Oz. It was going to see a guy that was successful, and it was fantastic for me. But you don't have to know a guru to succeed in this, and God knows there's a lot of very wealthy internet marketers who never met a guru in their life.
Absolutely.
Look at yourself, James. Did you have an internet guru to guide you?
No, I don't think there was any back in.
I don't think there was. I don't think internet gurus were around then.
I had a good buddy that decided he's just going to give me a hand and show me how, and he had a head start, and he was a smart guy, and he was kind and shared, and I was in a bit of a pickle financially and had 4 kids to feed, and just a nice guy.
And everything you created, you pretty well created on your own, all your own ideas. This conference call right now, this was
I find the whole thing it really does boil down to a lot of common sense, and, and making the time to actually take the time to figure it out and make it work and apply the strategies and make the mistakes and fumble through them, and then get that foundational knowledge in place so that you can get to a place like where you are. So you can now say, okay, in a couple of weeks, I know how to develop a $600 a month income stream, so I can go get a new car for my wife.
And it's the baby steps. That first sight's the toughest. Like I've always said to everyone, just put aside the cynicism, put aside the bad faith, and just think positively and take your time and know that most of us out here doing this aren't brain wizards. I'm no computer programmer, believe me now, nothing fancy. It's meat and potato stuff. Once you get the first site or two up, after that, It's all the same. And, I always recommend people, once you've got that figured out, don't stop. Don't veer off the path and go read, 15 more other ebooks and get all discouraged and get sidetracked. Just that is a big one there. Don't get sidetracked. Just continue on, build your site, and do it with faith, and then you just continue on moving up. And before you know it, you've got money coming in, and before you know it, you can do this a lot quicker.
So I've got about a half a dozen questions here.
Okay.
That people have sent in.
Okay.
Short notice today, so I got an email real late. But
okay.
If you don't mind, let me just run them by you.
Sure.
And these are questions for Mr. Brent-Truitt.
Okay.
This one, there's 6 of them in total. So first one be, how do you get and stay focused and motivated?
How do we get focused and stay motivated? Well, what?
Because it does get to be a little mind-numbing once in a while behind these machines.
Yeah, it does. And you know what? The biggest trick I can say is when you're feeling that feeling of, oh, geez, I'm dragged down and I can't, I'm not sure if I'm getting anywhere. You're starting to get a little bit just confused, maybe even, because it seems like such a brain drain. When I feel that now, I just go, I'm out of here. It's road trip. We're going to Montana for just 2 days. We're going to a campsite. I'm cheap.
Yeah. That's a vacation.
It's a vacation, and that is the biggest thing for me, because when I'm sitting there in that campground, and don't take your computer. Don't take your computer. Right. Take a notepad. Take a notepad, because when you're down there, you're going to think, oh, wow. That guy I was down there, actually down at KOA in Montana, and I just brought a notepad, and that drove me crazy. 3 days without my computer. That's like, oh my God, withdrawal, cold turkey. This is.
I bet you there's a lot of cool stuff on that notepad by the end of those 3 days.
There was, and you know what there was? There was I saw these kids driving these Razor scooters around.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that is cool. And they're a pretty good chunk of money for those things. So, you know what? I bet you if lo and behold, I put 2 of those sites up. And those are great gravy. I recommend everyone build one of those. but I don't mind sharing. And then and that's exactly what happens. Real life, you out there, just take your mind off of what you think you're failing at, and just look around and absorb a few things. That's how I stay inspired. You take a break. It sounds crazy. How do you stay focused? Simply, I just walk away and go the other direction for a while.
Me too.
And then your juices are flowing. You can't wait to get rocking,
Right now you're recharged, and let's get at her again.
Oh yeah, it's too much fun.
So what are some of the stumbling blocks you've had, and how did you recover? Let's maybe give us a good one. What's something that kind of tripped you up a little bit? Anything come to mind?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you what tripped me up the most is when you're first starting off. There's a seasonal reality to what they call marketing vectors, right? This is a term my brother-in-law told me about. And there's certain Phil, you know all about this, I guess, vectors?
No, I don't. I've never heard it called that before, but it's cute.
Yeah, it's when things dip in your market. Like, there is certain times of the year where internet traffic is high. And low. There's certain times of the week where for most of my sites, the lowest time of the week is Saturday. Other people in different markets have websites that children are involved in. Maybe the weekends would be heavier, but mostly we're selling basic products from shoes to golf, sporting equipments, boats, whatever. And there's dips in the year too. And the second year I was in it, I was just kicking butt. I was like, oh my God, we hit our first $10,000 month, and wow! And we had one month we had $18,000, and I was almost pissed myself. So excuse the language. And I'm just riding on this wave.
Some Calgary guys. So
yeah, and excuse my language. And I'm thinking, I'm going to buy a Cadillac next. When my lease is up on the car, I'm getting a Cadillac next, and I'm picking out the brand new golf clubs, and I'm gonna stay in a better hotel next time I go to Hawaii. He's really rocking here. Starting to be a smartass. Oh, guess what? I hit the low vector of the year, and I dropped from that amount down to half that. So that's still good. I mean, it's still a lot more than I ever made as a mechanic. But it was a wake-up call to say, when the times are good, keep it, put some pennies away, and try to be reasonable about it.
See, now we're starting to sound like our parents.
Yeah, isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, it is actually.
So yeah, that's and the other thing too is I'd say I got caught up with the pay-per-click world.
Yeah.
Because you know, I started trying some of the pay-per-click stuff, and you know, that when you put your ads on people like with Google AdWords, or you use MSN Ad Center, or use Yahoo Overture, the old Overture, they'll actually come along and wipe out your whole campaign because they'll say that your content on your page wasn't the right way or what have you, and all of a sudden you're at their mercy.
Yeah, so that's actually, I forgot that. So you actually began heavy, obviously, into natural search, no paid.
Yeah.
And you started doing real well, and then you shifted a little bit.
Yeah, and that caught me.
Tell us that story.
Well, I thought some of that more competitive markets, I got to try to get some traffic here. I'll try to see if it pays for me to pay for traffic and then, you know, make a profit. And you know, honestly, that does work. But, you know, Vince, but you don't have total control anymore. Like some of these companies you're advertising with, like I said, they will turn around and decide that you're not worthy. You know, this is the way it is on the internet now. It blows my mind. When it started off, you could run an ad somewhere, and they'd be glad to take your money. They'll just put your ad up there, and it's all good. Well, these companies, there's such demand, there's such a high demand now to have an ad placed on one of these search engines or someone else's website, that even if you're paying top dollar, you don't get the top position. They're basing where your ad gets placed on your website quality and what you're bidding. So here's what's happening. You have a site out there, a company that's bidding $3 a click for position, which is really high, you know, some big finance company or something. Mm-hmm. And guess what? I'm outranking them because I'm paying maybe 20 cents, but I'm getting a better ranking because my website's got more content.
Right.
So these people to think you can just put up a 6-page site and drive traffic to the pay-per-click, that in the long run, you're not worth doing it. It still comes back to the basic sites I built when I first used your book. You have to have some good content, quality content, a reasonable amount of it, and get some inbound links, and away you go. Then if you want to try pay-per-click, you will do very well in the pay-per-click rankings. Okay. So anyways, I fell off the train there because I started doing too much of that, spending my time doing that, and it started to affect my income negatively. So what I did was now I'm full-blown free traffic, natural traffic. Because, you know, you put those sites up, let them go. You don't have to chase around advertisers. You have to worry about your Visa cards and keeping everything.
People always, it's good. It's kind of refreshing for me to hear that. And, you know, a lot of people love to do very well with paid search. And
you can do very well.
Some of the best ones, like Brahma Bamber, for example, she's got huge natural search rankings and lots of content on her site, and she understands keywords and does everything she does so well. And then perfectly timed, she then decides to diversify, you know, the revenue she's making into some paid search traffic, and for her it just took off.
Yeah, well, if you watch the game, you know, it's funny, what I mean by watching the game. You know, I always say this on the forums, and this used to really annoy a lot of people on these marketing forums. They would all have their theories and their fancy little softwares and fancy little website builders, and you know, not belittling that. No, scratch that. I am belittling that. And what happened was, I would go on there. I would say, you know what, guys, everything you need to know, almost after you've learned to build a site anyway properly, as your methods, is look at the search engine, study it. Do some searches. Look around Google, MSN, Yahoo, and take a look and see who's getting the ranking, why, what are the advertising people doing down the side and the top of the page, and study it a little bit. And that way you learn, you know, what works and what doesn't work, and then really look at your site and see how you're ranking.
Yeah.
And that really pays dividends because you start to learn. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, a couple more questions here, actually. I think 1, 2, 3. Outsourcing. Do you outsource content? What do you do with your content? I know you write some of your own.
You know what? I wrote some of my own. When I started, I had to write my own. I couldn't even imagine paying content at first. But I look back and I wish I had, because I spent a lot of time writing when I could have just bit the bullet and paid for the content, because it pays for itself later many, many, many times over. But yes, I went to Elance and I tried a few writers. I had a couple of writers from India, and because they were quite cheap.
Yeah.
But oh my lord, the English was. It's like, I spelled dog, God. But anyway, so that wasn't good. And also, and quite frankly, I got a couple people that snafu'd me, and I was very trusting, as I usually am. And they sent me some garbage content, and I got, I've lost thousands of dollars doing that, not watching what I was paying for.
Yeah.
So what I did was, I highly recommend this to people. If you're going to use Elance, go on there, and really read what other people have said about their work.
Yeah.
Phone them. Don't just email them. Phone them. And, get a contact, build a relationship with a writer that's reasonably priced, and you usually get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And once you've got that relationship with that writer or two, you stick with those people. And so now when I get writing done, I've got one guy in Ontario. He's a magician.
Yeah.
He uses Dragon Speaking Naturally.
Yeah.
Dragon Naturally Speaking. I actually introduced him to that speech recognition program because I wanted my content faster. And now he's using that program, him and his wife, to pound out the original fresh content like crazy.
Absolutely.
He's really fast.
Isn't that cool? That's very cool software. I've got actually a good student of mine in Brooklyn, New York.
Wow.
And what he does is he's got his headset. And he's got a mobile version of some sort, and he'll go around. He's got a website. I won't tell the topic, but let's just say he does reviews live.
Oh, cool.
So he'll be looking at something and reviewing it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, Dragon Speak is taking his voice and turning it into text
and putting it into MS Word, and you just,
it's brilliant idea.
Your spelling, yeah.
You bet, because you imagine if you're standing in front of a restaurant or something, you could easily quickly review it, gather up all the information, tell where it is, location, specials, offers, anything you want to cover.
If we took this little telephone conference and put it into type, you know how much content we have tonight?
Yeah, hours worth.
Yeah. So
I know. So then what he does is he just goes home, cleans up the content, and or hires out and gets somebody to clean it up. It's very accurate. It's very interesting. It's completely unique.
Yeah.
And it ranks very, very, very well.
And that's the key thing. This is where people get in trouble. They try taking shortcuts.
That's right.
These algorithms out there that the search engine uses are so sophisticated now and getting more and more sophisticated. You cannot mess around. You got to have original content that isn't all over the internet. I don't know, James, correct me on that one. I was going to ask you that question.
Completely.
How many times can you have the same article out there before?
Well, you're only ever going to get benefit for one of it from an SEO point of view, so you might as well only have it out there once.
That's exactly what I do.
One of the things is, especially in the area of PAD, if you're distributing an article, there's no point giving it to a low-ranking, non-trusted website.
No.
Because now that you've got that out there, the search engines know about it. They don't need two copies. So now you give it to a great site that's got page rank. You may not get the benefit that you could have.
Right.
If you would have just given it to the good site. So.
And there comes the importance of building relationships again, too. Because if you you're better off finding one really high-ranking website, building a relationship with the webmaster or webmasters of that website, and getting a pad relationship with them where you give them an article, a nice, fresh, good, well-written article, and an inbound link to your site, and lo and behold, they're giving you an inbound 5 link.
That's right.
One way to your site, and you're better off working with that one website than you're working with 30 mediocre sites.
Absolutely.
Maybe 300 mediocre sites. I don't know.
Right.
So it's
thanks for bringing up that inbound link building workshop. That's something we've just kicked off. Actually, the first session was last night.
And it went well by the sounds of it.
Oh yeah, packed house, totally sold out. It was awesome.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's critical. You said something earlier when we started the show that I thought was really interesting, and my ears perked up, and I went, amen. And you said Google's what's their percentage of the search traffic now?
56% and growing.
Yeah, okay, that is nuts. So anyone who says, "Oh, I'll just ignore Google and I'm fine with my MSN Yahoo," has to really rethink that, because
no kidding.
we know what it's like. I start off a website and I'm getting lots of Google traffic, and if for some reason that site stops getting Google traffic and it's only got MSN Yahoo and all the other little ones, it's huge how much you lose.
I'd take a number one ranking on Google over a number one ranking on any other or all of the other search engines combined.
Yeah, I'll take number 7 on Google over number 1 on the other. Yeah, so It's fascinating. It's always changing, and that's what I love about the business. But you know what? It's crazy. Yes, it's always changing. But on the other hand, I gotta admit, I have these lazy stints. Where I go, and I won't work for 4 months. I'm a bad boy.
You earned it.
I earned it, and it's amazing. You sit back.
But you don't feel. At least I hope you don't feel guilty about it.
Oh, you know what? I'm not too guilty anymore. I know I worked hard on those sites, and they're still out there. And I think another thing that really fascinated me when I was listening to some of your Buzz programs when I was starting out there, is you had shown, I don't know where you'd shown this, but you'd shown an old website that you had built back, I don't know what year it was way back, and I think a little picture of a guy on a computer or something like that.
Yep.
And it was an old site you had built just when you were starting out, and you said, and it's still out there making some money.
That's right.
And this is the stupid part, like I'll build a site, and sometimes I'll pull a brainer, and I won't do my keyword research very well. I'll be lazy. I won't, I build crappy sites still too. I built some real good ones, and I built some crappy ones because maybe I was a little lazy that day. It's funny. You see those sites and you go, oh geez, that one's not going to be too good. I didn't really wasn't too smart with my keyword research. Then I've also come back 8 months later.
Yeah, lo and behold, it's making.
And lo and behold, the thing's making a couple $100 a month, and you go, wow, that's sick. And then
I have 90 of those.
What's that?
I have 90 of those.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I got about 84 of those and 6 real good ones.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly where I'm at too. I have about 3 really good ones, and we have about 75. I guess we're pretty close to you now on all these little guys out there that just chug along, and you know what? And I'm convinced that 10 years from now, it's still going to be making money.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, this is the analogy a metaphor I've sort of used with people. I try to get into the business. I say, look, you go to work every morning and you roll a big ball, this big steel ball that's the size of you, all the way up a hill. You grind and sweat that ball at the top of the hill. And you leave it there. Great. I did all my work. Now I'm going to go home, going to go sleep, watch a little TV, and in the morning I'm going to come back to work, and the ball is at the bottom of the hill again. So I got to, grunt away. So with the internet, I'll sit there and polish up a ball, and push the ball up to the top of the hill, my website. It's all done, completed. It's got some inbound links. It's on its way. And I kiss it goodbye. And the next morning, I get up, that ball is still on the top of the hill. It's making money, so every time, this is the sick part, every time you go to work on the internet, it just means more. It just means more money.
Just a little bit of layering on top of it.
Yeah, and it just keeps on ticking away. So, and then it really just comes down to how greedy you are. Do you have to need to be comfortable? How many holidays a year do you want? Or I guess it sounds sick to people who are
lots. Every
starting off.
Weeks will be fine.
Yeah.
2 more questions for you.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, number 4. Do you have a special tool or software that you would recommend to somebody getting started?
Well, I started off just using Dreamweaver, which is just an editor, so it really doesn't matter, in my opinion, what the editor is. Like I say, in my opinion.
So you're talking about the website builder?
It's not a website builder. Dreamweaver is just a basic HTML editor. That's what I use. I say if I had to go to that little basement suite I described, I had nothing left in this world. I'd have one laptop, a high-speed internet connection. I would have a FTP client, so I can upload files to a server. I would have Dreamweaver or Front Page or whatever editor you use to build your sites, and I believe really it comes down, that's about it. There's some interesting web builders out there now. I'll mention one that's pretty cool. Hyper-VRE is interesting.
Hyper-VRE?
Yeah, I'm testing it right now. So far it's working, but it's Matt Callan designed a program that helps you build a site. It's a web builder.
Okay, cool.
Server side, right?
Yep.
So I've been messing with that, but you know what? I'm finding that all the way through my progression, the first year I got going when we started to succeed, then I started experimenting with different pieces of software. Well, really, I'm now actually scaling back. I have less toys. I have less software programs, less of everything. I'm finding less is. I'm going more and more back to the pure root of it. Good keyword research. Get a basic template, get a banner made or get someone to make one for you. The simple stuff really pays off, and those sites stay up there forever. I must say this, though. I love WordPress. I'm a WordPress guy.
Yes, I love WordPress, too.
Yeah, WordPress blog platform.
Yeah.
It's very, very powerful, and once you learn how to set it up properly. And
that's actually a good point. So a lot of people always ask me on my sites, I've got a static site. Should I add a WordPress blog to it? So let me run with that.
I go the opposite direction. Wow. And does this ever work? So let's just say I tried that thing. I had static websites, and I had a blog. I put a link off my homepage of my static site, and it goes to the blog. And that didn't work that well. A little bit of success, and they're still making some money. But what really works well, for me anyway, is I build a site using a WordPress blog right from the get-go. It's the main site. It's on the main domain. There is no static site, right?
Okay.
So you build a WordPress blog, and because the beautiful thing about a blog is you do a post, it pings all the servers, it updates Google to the sitemap. Google sees you right away. Of course, you get inbound links from other bloggers. Well, you build this blog. I'll do this as a pattern now. For about 4 months, I'll build a good blog. What I mean by good blog is that I make a post once every 3 days. I make sure the post is, a good lengthy post, about 700 words.
Mm-hmm.
And you take it along like that, and I create a reputation. I create a reputation and a relationship with the search engines. And before you know it, they like it. And, now a blog that's been up for 4 months, I'll make a post, I go into Google Sitemaps, and all of a sudden I'll see that Google's come and spidered my whole site.
Almost instantly, isn't it?
Instantly, absolutely instantly. So now, this is the cool part. Once you got the blog running well, you've got your sidebar on your blog, right?
Yeah.
And you can put anything you want in there, right? So then I'll build a bunch of these little niche sites, and I'll put a link off the blog to the niche sites. Well, you've got reputation on that blog, so all the search engines come and spider your blog, and they see all these little niche sites. Bing, bam, thank you, ma'am. All you got to do is make sure that the little niche sites are on topic with the main blog. And wow, does that pay dividends?
Let me ask you a question. Why wouldn't you? 2 questions. First.
Yeah.
First of all, why wouldn't you, instead of building the little niche sites, because I know this is where we all come from.
Right, yeah.
Why wouldn't you now, in today's environment, maybe target that all into one? I mean, I understand covering all the little topics, but have you thought about putting them all on one site?
Yeah, I have one like that.
Okay.
And I made a basic shopping site. So, of course, it's all open, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can put anything on a site like that now. And so, Andy, it doesn't matter what the topic is, it's online shopping. And so, there's nothing wrong with that. You got a blog that's all about online shopping, and you've got all of these little niche sites off of the sidebar, and they're going to everything from, like I mentioned, golf clubs to gardening equipment to kitchen supplies, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's all relevant as far as the search engine is concerned. And then, then it's free. You don't even have to build another blog. You just keep pounding it on.
You mentioned building the reputation for the blog with the search engines. Maybe you could elaborate on that a little.
Well, it's funny. I have great respect for those search engines. I look at those algorithms. What's that?
They feed us.
They feed us, and you want the search engines. You want to give them a pure white reputation. What I mean by that is, you don't put any posts on your blog that are content from somewhere else on the internet. This is fresh, original content, and you do a little research. These are good articles, I'm talking about every 3 days. Mm-hmm. And they love it. When Google sees that this kind of content going up, especially every 3 days, every day is good, every 2 days, every 3 days, but they see a consistent pattern of good quality content going up. And when I create a reputation, I don't try to go get any old inbound links from some site that's not related to mine. I'll handpick and some specific inbound links to this blog, and not many. I'm talking maybe 5 or 6 links to start. That's it, as long as they're good quality. Yeah. And then, so now Google says, well, this guy's not, because they're watching you. Mm-hmm. They're watching your site, every day, and they're looking at it and they're going, okay, what kind of, there's inbound links coming to this site. Oh, all of a sudden he's got 300 inbound links and they have nothing to do with this site. This is garbage.
That's right.
Think you're off the map, right?
Yeah.
If you get 5 good links that are semi on topic, they'll say, okay, well, obviously he's not a link pig. He's not trying to manipulate our search engine. Kudos to him. Let's go take a look at his content now. Oh, well, this is fresh content. I've never seen this content anywhere on the internet, and it seems to be a pretty good article. And right down to the grammar. If Microsoft Word can take a look at your content and decide that your grammar's bad and automatically tell you when you're making grammar mistakes,
right.
You don't think the Google algorithm is looking at that?
Absolutely.
Right? So
take it off in a second.
Absolutely. So, and of course MSN is there and Yahoo, and they're doing the same thing, and they're going to be as sophisticated as Google is now someday. And so you just build a real, what I call is a pure white site, meaning you don't mess around. It's real content. You're not trying to be tricky. You're not trying to get a bunch of crappy inbound links. It's just they look at it as the real McCoy. You mentioned that site. Was it called You Build It, or what's that guy's? Google's favorite site they like to talk about. I'm the Builder, or whatever it's called.
GoAskTheBuilder.com.
Yeah, GoAskTheBuilder.com. That's what you call a pure white site. It's pure. It's real good. It's good content. There's an update every once in a while. Maybe it's twice a day now. I don't know.
Probably
but
updated a lot. Yeah, I would think.
Yeah, and he's heavy duty now. But you just start off slow and build a quality site. That's all you can do. And then once you got that reputation, you can pretty well put anything on the site, and you're gonna make money from it. So yeah, you're right. Build one good site.
Last question.
Yeah.
What does a typical Brent Truitt day look like?
Oh my God. If you, well, I'll tell you what this week. Let's see here. Okay. You know that I don't know if anyone's ever seen the movie Office Space, but there's a great line in there. The guy wants to quit his job. He hates his job so much he's going to a shrink. And he says, I had this dream. I had this dream of doing nothing. So this week, for instance, I get up in the morning about 7:30. And I get up and I have a coffee and I bring in the dogs and I play around with them for a while, and about 9 o'clock I'll go in and I usually read my books. I'm writing a book right now, so in the morning I actually work for a couple hours writing a book.
Very cool.
And that's a new dream. So I work on the book a bit, and then I'll go about 9 o'clock and back to the grind, and I'll work for about 5 minutes. 5 minutes of work, and I will go into my AdSense account and my commissions accounts and anything that makes me a penny, or it makes me more than a penny. I'll go in and check all my commissions, how much money I made the day before, and I enter it into an Excel spreadsheet. I've got a spreadsheet so I can track, the rhythm of the flow of the money. Mm-hmm. I'll enter it into my spreadsheet, and that's 5 minutes. I'm done with that. Then I'll go watch the news, take it easy, and nod off to sleep. And then at about 2 in the afternoon, when I finally had a shower and made myself like a human, I'm presentable so the mailman doesn't go ugh. then about 2 o'clock I'll sit down and I'll work on a new website that I've been working on, and it takes me about because once you've got your templates, once you've got your first sites built, it's the same template.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing. All I do is load a different image. I put different content on it, and it's really all the work is sort of done for you. So it takes me, I work about 2-3 hours a day now in the afternoon. But when golf season's on, I won't even do that. I'll do my 5 minutes in the morning to record the money that came in the day before, and I'll go golfing and then come back and have dinner with Betty. So in the summertime, the answer is I don't do much of anything. In the wintertime, around September, I go hard. I work 12-hour days, sometimes 10-hour days, from September through to January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When the snow flies in Calgary.
Yeah, and that's one good thing about Canada. We get wintered in here in Calgary, and there's a great time to just sit on the internet, and you're hibernating anyways. You might as well be making some money.
That's right.
So that's sort of it. You're pretty well typical.
Well, Mr. Truitt, that's been great. This whole chat has been awesome. I much appreciate getting you on the line.
Yeah, it was a really good time, and thanks, Phil, for inviting me. Yeah,
Brent, it was great to share it. It's really interesting how life goes full circle. And again, to have known you from starting off as a musician to come full circle now to be a successful affiliate, it's got a great ring to it, man. Good on you, man.
Thanks so much, and for the support, James and Phil, throughout the years.
Awesome. So thanks again, Brent. You shared a lot of great information. I know listeners were really going to get a lot out of what you had.
Yeah, I hope they, especially the beginners. I hope they.
Any final words of encouragement you want to give?
Yeah, keep it simple. Don't get distracted by the endless emails and the forms that come and telling you about how you're doing it wrong, and you need to get this fancy software, and you need to buy a $1,000 ebook because the $167 ebook or the $200 ebook isn't good enough. You don't need to do that. Just keep it simple. Build a basic website and stick to the basic rules, and don't panic. You don't have to have 400 pages. You can get there one day, but don't worry about that. Just worry about one article at a time or 10 articles at a time if you've got a writer. And give it time. Be patient. The search engines need a little bit of time. There's billions of pages out there. They need a little time to take a look at you. That's all I can say.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Awesome, Brent. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much again. Awesome.
So you bet. So should I be just?
Absolutely. For those of us that are actually listening to this call live, we'll meet you back in the conference room in just a few minutes.
Okay.
For those that are maybe listening to this as a recording, all Coffee Talk interviews are recorded for playback and review, so check out jamesmartell.com if you'd like to learn more about them. Upcoming Coffee Talks with Chris Sanderson in a couple weeks from amwso.com, which is an affiliate marketing and management network. Chris is a very interesting guy. We're going to be chatting with him about working from abroad. Chris actually lives in Thailand, and he's been there for 15 years with his family. Has a very interesting story about traveling with affiliate programs and everything that you can do with business as far as, maybe living in another country for 3 months of the year and that type of thing. So we're going to be covering that in the next Coffee Talk. Following that, on the first Monday evening of each month, we can meet back in the conference room for a live question and answer period, which is for our private members who may have a question or need a little clarification. So you can check out jamesmartell.com for more information on that. Plus, you can learn about the Inbound Link Building Workshop and our fourth edition, or our next coming edition of the online version of the Affiliate Marketers Bootcamp. So, once again, thank you, Brent. This has been another edition of
Thank you. Yep.
Coffee Talk, and bye for now.
Bye for now.
To learn more about James Martell, the School of Internet Marketing, and how you or someone on your staff can quickly and easily learn how to develop a successful online presence for your personal or corporate brand, visit theschoolofinternetmarketing.com. That's www.theschoolofinternetmarketing.com.